1947 would prove to be a true Cinderella year for the California Golden Bears. After suffering through the worst season in their 64-year football history, none of the preseason experts gave the blue and gold much hope for improvement. But they had yet to meet Lynn Pappy Waldorf. Soon after arriving in Berkeley for his first season as head coach, Pappy began creating not only a winning team, but a football powerhouse that would last well into the next decade. Echoes of Pappy for president would be heard rumbling through Strawberry Canyon for the next 9 years.
We had lost one game all year and were ranked number 3 in the nation. We went down to play Stanford on the farm. They hadn't won a game. They hadn't tied a game.
An 8-1 Cal record against winless Stanford made the Bears 28-point favorites in the 1947 game, the longest odds in big game history. But the experts seemed to forget one thing. This was the big game.
This was something really quite special. So you knew from the beginning you were going to be in for a very exciting afternoon. The excitement wasn't quite what we had planned for. And I must say, I'm just grateful we were able to pull it out.
A hard-fought first half had the stunned Cal Bears leading only by a score of 14-6. As the second half opened, Stanford narrowed the lead to 14-12. Early in the fourth quarter, the unthinkable happened. Stanford went ahead 18-14. With less than 3 minutes remaining, the Indian fans were dancing in the aisles of Stanford Stadium. After the kickoff, California was 80 yards away from the goal line.
We were on our own 20-yard line, and Keckley, who hadn't played for the last 4 or 5 games of the season with a shoulder injury, came into the game. He prevailed upon Pappy to let me finish up the Stanford game. You know, I haven't gotten to play most of the season. He came into the game, and Dick Erickson called the Gantenbein pass. Well, the play starts with a pitch out to the fullback, who was Jack Jensen. He swept to the right, stopped, and threw back to the left where Keckley was waiting for the ball on the flat. It was a lousy pass. It fluttered and blustered, but it got there.
Cal fans went wild while Stanford rooters sat in shocked silence. The big game had lived up to its name once again. The 1948 Golden Bears were no longer the dark horse of college football. Unbeaten and untied, they were ranked 4th in the nation going into the big game as 6-1 favorites.
Maybe we were great. I'm not so sure. We had a few truly great athletes. Jack Jensen, without a doubt, was the finest all-around athlete I have ever been associated with or had the pleasure of seeing compete.
And he didn't disappoint the fans. Offensively, the big game turned out to be the Jackie Jensen show. California's Golden Boy ran for 170 yards in 19 carries, setting a new big game rushing record. But it was the toe and hands of Jim Truck Cullum that were to make the difference.
So although we had a rather vaunted offense, we were not able to really produce that well against those Stanford teams.
In the second half, Cal did its best to give the game away, but the Indians couldn't capitalize on the Bears' mistakes. Finally, after another California fumble, Stanford was able to turn it into a touchdown. All the Indians needed was the point after to tie the game. The snap, the kick, it looked good, until Truck Cullum's hand got in the way. The final score stood at California 7, Stanford 6. Another big game victory, and Pappy had his first trip to Pasadena. The 1953 big game is considered by many to be one of the most exciting of all time. It featured the offensive brilliance of 2 All-American quarterbacks, Paul Larson of California and Stanford's Bobby Garrett. Neither of them failed to live up to their advanced billing.
Larson fakes a jump pass, rolls out to his right a little further as he scans the field. Then he gets the pass away, and it's complete to White, and White is out of bounds after picking up 15 yards and a first down. 3rd down and 9 now for the Indians on the California 19-yard line as they come driving right back to get points on the scoreboard. Garrett again drops back. He looks for his receiver, and this time it's Sam Worley, and Worley makes a great catch, and it's good for 14 yards and a first down. In a normal T formation, we switch to our field camera and go into slow motion as the handoff goes to Talley. Talley finds the opening, and he drives at right guard, turns and drives and turns his way into the end zone for a California touchdown.
The score was tied 21 apiece midway through the fourth quarter, but this one was far from over.
And a Stanford penalty gave the Bears possession of the ball with seconds left to go on the Stanford 7-yard line. Larson is going to try a field goal. The ball is snapped. It's placed down. The kick is in the air. But the field goal attempt is not good. And a few moments later, the game ended with our final scoreboard reading Stanford 21, California 21. In a game that wasn't decided until the final gun, Coach Waldorf's Bears and Coach Chuck Taylor's Indians battled to a 21-21 tie.
In the 1954 big game, Paul Larson and his Golden Bear teammates continued their impressive offensive show.
Larson back to pass again. And he hits Carmichael on the sideline.
Cal was able to build a 28-0 third-quarter lead around Larson's passing, the receiving of Jim Hannafin, and the running of Jerry Drew.
It's to number 34. Hemmed in, heads the other way. And he's going to make it all the way.
Well, Stanford wasn't about to give up as they roared back to close the gap 28-20 on the passing of sophomore sensation John Brody and a well-balanced running attack.
Young going the other way, number 44. He's at the 30, the 20, the 10, the 5, and into the end zone for an Indian touchdown.
A fourth-quarter interception and a deflected pass in the end zone not only preserved the Bears' win, but gave California the big game series lead for the first time in big game history. 1955 would end Stanford's 9-year big game drought. But there was an even bigger shock in store for California fans in 1956. Pappy Waldorf announced his resignation 4 days before the annual big game. Stanford was a 2-touchdown favorite over the hapless Bears. They were bringing a 2-7 record into the game. But the odds makers had not counted on Pappy's surprise announcement.
I'll never forget the Thursday that Pappy Waldorf called us in and basically went on to say that he was going to retire after this big game 2 days from now. And immediately, we didn't want to let him down. As a football team, we just decided that we had to win that football game.
Cal played like a team possessed, taking the opening kickoff and driving straight down the field to give Pappy an early 7-0 lead. After a Brody fumble, the Bears resumed their relentless march toward the Stanford goal line. The drive highlighted by a 29-yard run by sophomore quarterback and future Cal coach Joe Kapp.
Stanford was using a 5-2 kind of defense, Oklahoma defense, whatever you want to call it, where their two linebackers were keying our guards. And Wes Fry, Pappy came up with a great little play where we would pull our guards, their linebackers would react to that, and I then would just take a little jab step and I would do a quarterback sneak. Well, we ended up rushing for 100 yards that day on this little chicken play. And yet it got down to a couple of tactical reasons why we were able to beat Stanford that day, but without question, to a man, we were playing for Pappy that day.
That allowed Lynn Waldorf, if you can imagine, in a 10-year span, he beat Stanford 7 times, lost only once, and tied 2 games. That is the most impressive big game record, and that'll stand up for a long time.
With the departure of Pappy Waldorf, another important